Is this some kind of a joke? You got ants in your pants, call an exterminator. I'm on vacation. What? How big? Casualties? What do you mean the southern perimeter's been compromised? Listen up, soldier. If we lose England, it's not going to be to a bunch of pinko ants. I don't care how big. Look, I don't care how you do it, son. I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it'd do any good. You just tell your men to get out there and kick some ant ass. Ants.
Welcome back, Commander. It seems that, well, we're against ants? I guess we should call them. Or maybe it came from the desert. But we're not in the... whatever. If it's not immediately obvious for you, don't worry too much about it. As the, I guess, hokey intro can probably give you a clue, this mission is based solely around it came from the desert. The game, for whatever reason, doesn't actually mention that, though. I guess it just assumes that you would know about it. It Came from the Desert is a video game, or I guess multiple video games, depending on if you count the various console versions as being different entirely. Technically, they are. I will be mentioning this in the future because of a past recording for a then current record update. Whatever. Point is, the videos, if you ever want to know about It Came from the Desert, there's a guy called Slowbeef, very popular streamer, or at least I don't know if he streams anymore, but he's a popular streamer on SA at the time, a long time ago, and Diabetes, his partner. They did a long play with the help of a kind person who, gave him the footage of the entire game being played, of It Came from the Desert, which was about nuclear, or at least irradiated ants that they're kind of doing the same thing as right now. They are trying to turn the tides against us humans. And if you don't know the origins of that entire story, it's kind of sort of based off of a movie called Them. That's THEM exclamation mark. And it was released a long time ago. We're talking, I believe it was, 1954. Now, the entire premise of it is that, It Came from the Desert, which is based off of that movie, which I believe is based off of a novel, is centered entirely around ants that are subjected to radiation. They grow obscenely large and, well, do what we see right now. It's actually particularly interesting that the developers actually put that sort of interaction in. Unit ready. We'll see it way in the future. For two reasons. One, I figured the map video should probably come last. And two, the ant missions, they're kind of a weird timeline when it comes to how you should represent them in all the scenarios. I figure it's probably just best to show them at the end of Counter-Strike before Aftermath. Mainly because the sprites, I guess we'll call them, are kind of more related to Counter-Strike than they are to Aftermath. Now, for the devs to get that ant to actually attack the tree and do stuff, and effectively get the ants an extra shortcut, they had to put a waypoint on the tree, which I thought was actually kind of interesting. You don't really see that sort of creativity, I guess we'll call it, uh, at like any other time in the campaign, as far as I remember, anyways. Now, ants are dangerous to deal with. Um, they have large health pools, relatively little to no armor, which is nice, but they do hurt a lot. You'll have to worry about your ore truck all the time, especially if you don't have anybody to guard it with. Now, I'm kind of a dummy and I never built anything to, follow my ore trucks around. I know, it's a big problem. Especially all things considered in these levels, this level. So, watch out for that sort of thing. If it wasn't bad enough that the ants come in large size with a lot of damage, and will generally 3-shot, if not 2-shot, any unit that you currently have on the map, or truck exclude, and even that goes down quickly. There's one thing to always be even more concerned about, and that's the fire ants. It's kind of obvious what they do, but if you can't figure it out, we've seen them in action, but they launch fireballs. It's not pleasant for any sort of infantry that find themselves, in that particular certain set of actions. It also sucks because, well, as we can see, we're very limited on our tech choices. The mine layer is an okay option, but I don't know. I'm always against using the mine layer just because I'm lazy. And the fact that I feel like ants are a little bit more unpredictable in their movement. Unit ready. They seem to always be hunting out units rather than, patrolling in set paths. Unit ready. Although maybe it has to do with this particular level, mainly because if I remember anything from the map video, I believe they're set to pretty much come in, maybe follow a waypoint 2 tops, and then attack. So maybe it's the fact that they're such short-fused, we'll say, that they just seem to be more unpredictable. I think the best defense against the ants, at least for this mission, is to try and just block whatever paths you can manage. So if you happen to see any sort of opening, just a line of infantry is usually good enough to mitigate whatever sort of damage the ants could do. And yeah, ants really don't mess around. They also seem to have their attacks, I don't want to say follows a unit, but it seems like it has a short confirmation period, but it takes a little bit of extra, there's a lag before it applies damage. Or maybe it's just the fact that it just looks weird because how fast the animation is. I don't know. Now, sadly, because of the fact that we have so little to do, really, it's best just to fast forward once you get a good setup going. It's important to note that you can always set the difficulty however you want, so there is a possibility for having this be tougher if you so choose. It's probably not the best decision, all things considered, but it's at least an option that's available. I'd say that mattered, but, you know, there's not really anything that you have to be worried about on the minimap. I remember always having a lot of trouble with these levels as a kid, and I will say immediately that it was always amazing to, like, it was the first time I ever discovered that these missions existed was pretty crazy. For the unknowing viewer, the basic idea is you go to the main screen and you'll notice that there's a speaker in the top left and the top right. I believe CNC Net doesn't care, like that version doesn't specifically care about which speaker, but in memory it always seemed to be the right speaker. If you hold shift and click on that, you just get a menu that opens up and it just says, what difficulty do you want to play on? And that's your go-to button. As soon as you hit OK, you get to the briefing. And some versions don't play it. The CNC Net version, for whatever reason, maybe it's just I didn't update it or something properly. It's sort of the same thing with the expansion videos. For whatever reason, it just doesn't play the intro. But if you played it on the old on your old PC, your old DOS box or whatever, it would play. And seeing that for the first time was pretty crazy. It's just so strange. And I guess for me it had a more of an effect because I never knew about the dinosaur thing because I never really played Tiberian Dawn. Oh, and it's a little weird that there's certain walls that can be sold and others that can't. I'm not quite sure what the logic is behind it, but c'est la vie.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Ready and waiting.
Mission accomplished.